Hello and welcome to World News Midnight Edition with Mikir and Zachary. Coming up next are the headlines. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, honored on Saturday in Algiers the winners of the 8th edition of the Prize of the President of the Republic for Professional Journalists. Also in our news, Giorgia Meloni is sworn in as Italy's first female far-right premier since World War II. Also in our news, we will shed light on who will be the next occupant of the 10th Downing Street after Truss and whether there is a guarantee of UK stability in near future. Also in our news, Malawi is struggling to cope with cholera outbreak that has killed more than 100 people since March this year. Hello again and welcome to the details. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, honored on Saturday in Algiers the winners of the 8th edition of the Prize of the President of the Republic for Professional Journalists, organized under the theme 60th Anniversary of Independence, Yesterday's Challenges of Today. Among the awarded journalists is colleague journalist Mr. Rida Bouishad. So congratulations to our colleague and to our channel, All 24 News.
زوجة الوزير والدبلوماسي السابق الأسبق محمد الميلي العمومي فمديرا عاما للمؤسسة العمومية. الشكر لكم سيدي رئيس مجلس سيدي الفريق أول رئيس أركان الجيش 20 في موضوع له بعنوان فصول في الدبلوماسية الجزائرية.
جائزة رئيس الجمهورية للصحفي المحترف.
The President's Award for Professional Journalists comes in order to devote the energy of merit and also as a celebration of the national press in Algeria with its experience related to its traditions, as well as the great role it plays and the challenges it awaits, especially in light of these geopolitical changes.
To other news now, Prime Minister of Libya's Tripoli-based unity government, Abdulhamid Dbeibeh, has rejected an agreement with East Libya-based parliament on changing heads of the country's sovereign positions. Dbeibeh called for the speedy adoption of a fair constitutional rule that ends the legal problem which prevents holding elections, and pointed out that talking about parallel tracks such as the sharing of sovereign positions is no longer acceptable, and that the Libyans are demanding the elections be held as soon as possible. On Friday, Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Riyad al-Malki welcomed the report issued by the Independent International Commission of Inquiry of the United Nations on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East al-Quds, noting that the report affirms the duty of the international community to commit to ending the illegal Zionist occupation. To Africa now, Guinea's military government has agreed on a shorter timeline for transition to elections of 24 months, down from 36. In a statement, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said it agreed with the transition leaders on a 24-month timeline after discussions with team of the bloc's representative led by the mediator for Guinea, Benin's former president Thomas Boniayi. And in Africa still, Malawi is struggling to cope with a cholera outbreak that has killed more than 100 people since March this year. Medical workers are trying to contain the spread of the disease, but they may be running out of time. Cholera disease has also been reported in different regions of the world this year, including Haiti and Syrian camps in Lebanon. To the Middle East now, as the political blocs in Iraq continue their discussions about the upcoming ministerial composition, the major political parties in parliament decided to postpone the voting session for the new government, which was set to take place on Saturday. The voting session had been postponed to a later date that had not yet been decided. Iraqi MPs said in a statement confirming that the ongoing negotiations between the political blocs had not resulted in the resolution of the next ministerial composition. And days after drones attack on Ukraine, which the United States and Ukraine allegedly accused Iran of supplying Russia with the military drones, Iran's foreign ministry claimed on Saturday that the US is in a rush to get a nuclear deal with Iran, despite public comments by American officials who said the nuclear deal is no longer their focus at the moment.
3 days ago, we received a message from the American side. In their messages, the Americans are even in a rush to reach the point of an agreement as soon as possible. We clearly stated that the accusations made by the IAEA against Iran must be resolved. Americans, while exchanging messages with us, are trying to blow on the fire of the issues going on in Iran in recent days, and I think they are after to pressure us politically and psychologically to win concessions at the talks. We will give the Americans no concessions whatsoever.
And to develop one of our headlines, Giorgia Meloni was sworn in on Saturday as Italy's far-right premier. Meloni has formed Italy's new ruling coalition, giving the country its first far-right-led government since the end of World War II. Zahra Farjani has more details.
Giorgia Meloni was sworn in as Italy's first woman prime minister on Saturday, alongside her cabinet team, giving the country its most right-wing government since World War II. Meloni, head of the Nationalist Brothers of Italy, swept to victory in an election last month as part of a coalition that included Forza Italia, led by former Premier Silvio Berlusconi and Matteo Salvini's League.
I would like to thank you for the attention with which you have followed the work on the formation of the new government. This time was short. Less than a month has passed since the elections. It was possible because of the clarity of the election result, and it was also necessary to proceed quickly in view of the domestic and international conditions that demand government in the fullness of its tasks.
Meloni's government, the 12th this century, will replace a national unity government led by former European Central Bank head Mario Draghi. According to analysts, there probably won't be much change in Italian foreign and domestic policy.
Most member states will want to try and reorient as much as possible part of those funds also to address the energy crisis. So nothing particularly Italian about that. So you can expect that. And then you can expect, again, much along the lines of what Draghi himself has been doing in terms of addressing the energy crisis.
Italy's new prime minister faces a string of intimidating challenges, notably a looming recession, rising energy bills, and how to present a united front over the Ukraine war. So the question remains, is Italy ready for the changes that may affect the country internally and externally?
And to elaborate more on this topic, I am joined live via Skype by Mr. Mark Lowe, an expert on international relations from Italy. Mr. Mark Lowe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation.
Thank you. So this is the first far-right government since Mussolini Valerie. How much of a shift is it taking place here in Italian politics, Mr. Mark Lowe?
It is, without doubt, a very, very big shift indeed. Mm-hmm. And it's also a very, very good example of democracy actually working. Mm-hmm. It has been a long time since the Italian electorate has had the opportunity of actually voting for who governs the country. The Italian electorate have spoken very, very clearly, albeit an election characterized by a very, very large percentage of absenteeism. There were rather a lot of people did not vote. But in any case, this right-wing coalition won an absolutely clear mandate. So we now have a situation which is something of a change, and very, very importantly, brings Italy its first ever female prime minister, which in itself is a fantastic result. So, very lines of welcome to the 21st century, Italy.
Very nice. But what kind of challenges do you think that Meloni is having with the far-right government in the heart of the EU now?
Right. I don't think that there are any great challenges as regards the European Union, in the sense that Meloni's government will continue to adhere to the current political line, to the current political agreements with the European Union. I think we can forget all about any idea of Italy considering exiting Europe. You know that some of Meloni's partners in this coalition in the past have expressed doubts as to remaining in the European Union or otherwise. We can forget about that. Italy is in the Union. It will stay in the Union. Meloni's government will continue along the lines established by the previous Prime Minister Mario Draghi's government. Meloni's problems are also domestic, Meloni's problems right just now are domestic problems. Fortunately, in this coalition, there are some signs of internal, let me be diplomatic and say debate. But I think that Giorgia Meloni is very tough. She's very hard. She's very clear. She's very transparent. And she will manage to deal with any problems raised by partners such as Berlusconi or Salvini. I think that just now the biggest risk to Meloni's coalition comes from within the coalition, but at the same time, I think that she is perfectly capable of resolving any internal problems.
Very nice indeed. Mr. Mark Lowe, you're an international expert. Thank you so much for joining us live from Italy. Moving on now to another topic. Liz Truss's resignation from the top position in the UK has put other four figures at the front of the race to take the top job in the country. Four candidates are likely to race each other in the next few days to reach a position that has become critical in the last few years in the UK.
British Prime Minister Liz Truss announced that she would step down from the top position of the country. However, given the divisions in the ruling Conservative Party, there is no obvious candidate to lead the country, likely heading into recession. Four contenders are likely to compete for the top position in the country in the next election.
National security, there is no economic security, and I think that is important that whoever are the candidates putting their names forward, they indicate that. But also at the same time, I have to recognise the issue of the mandate. This will be potentially our third Prime Minister since the general election of 2019.
Britain's former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak was the most popular candidate among Conservative lawmakers at Westminster. But after getting through to a runoff against Truss, he lost out in a vote involving some 170,000 party members who make the final decision.
It's not going to be easy. There are these divisions. But actually, if you look at that support and you look at the approach that he's taken, I think he's the person to take us forward. And it's critically important at this incredibly challenging time.
Jeremy Hunt promoted himself in a series of confident performances on television and in the House of Commons. As he ripped up Truss's economic manifesto, Hunt has already led some Conservative lawmakers to refer to him as the real Prime Minister, although he dismissed any will to take the top position in previous occasions. Penny Mordaunt, who's a former Defence Secretary, was a passionate supporter of leaving the EU. She only missed out in the final two-place runoff in the recent leadership challenge. One lawmaker has described her as having broad appeal, referring to her ability to find friends in various tribes of the party.
Recently, I think our party has lost its sense of self. If I can compare it to being in the Glastonbury audience when Paul McCartney was playing his set, we indulged all those new tunes, but what we really wanted was the good old stuff that we all knew the words to.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson was the face of the Brexit vote and won votes in parts of the country that had never voted Conservative before, but he was forced out by a string of scandals. Some closest to him say at the moment he's not interested in returning to the front line. Liz Truss leaving the British Prime Ministry has put the country in a difficult situation, especially after the collapse of her economic plan. The United Kingdom is looking forward to finding its way out of the crisis that might put the country in a more awkward stage of political crisis.
Very nice. For more about this, I am joined live via Skype from the UK by Pippa Catterall, Professor of History and Policy from the University of Westminster. Professor Pippa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So my first question is, Truss's resignation from the British Prime Ministry was at some point expected, especially after the failure of her economic plan. But how can lawmakers' ruling party cope with the 4 candidates who appear to compete for the top position in the country?
Well, I think it's already come down to probably only 2 realistic candidates. So the contest is set up at the moment that each candidate has to get 100 Conservative MPs to nominate them by 2 p.m. London time on Monday. That doesn't give them very much time. We know already that Rishi Sunak, who you mentioned in your report just now, already has passed that 100 supporter mark. This afternoon, Johnson supporters, Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister, were going around telling reporters that their man also had passed the 100 MP mark. However, we know that only about 50 people have actually declared for Johnson. Penny Mordaunt seems to be more or less out of the running. She's only got about 23 people openly declared for her. And I don't think Jeremy Hunt is actually seriously running at this point in time.
And Professor Pepper, how likely is the return of Boris Johnson to the political frontline?
Well, it really depends on whether he gets over the 100 MP support barrier or not. If Sunak is the person who is the only one who gets over 100 nominations, then the chances are we'll know who the new British Prime Minister is by sometime on Monday afternoon. If, however, Johnson gets over 100 nominees, he will probably let his name go forward. It will probably go to a vote across the Conservative Party's membership, as well as just amongst the MPs in Parliament. And if it goes to the membership, they will almost certainly go for Johnson, as they did back in 2019 and as they went for Truss over this summer, even though there are all the question marks about Johnson. After all, he had to resign only about 3 months ago because so many MPs refused to serve under him anymore.
Very nice indeed, Professor Pippa Cattrall. You're a Professor of History and Policy from the University of Westminster. Thank you so much for being with us. Moving on now to a different topic. China's ruling Communist Party approved in a new state of its 205-member Central Committee Saturday at the closing session of a week-long party congress that set the leadership and the agenda for the next 5 years. Sufyan Kinturi.
The twice-decade Congress of China's ruling Communist Party came to an end on Saturday, solidifying Xi Jinping's hold on the presidency and revealing a new Central Committee that is missing 2 important members who are not close to the leader. By breaking with tradition and securing a 5-third term as Party General Secretary, Xi will become the most powerful leader in China since Mao Zedong, the founding leader of People's Republic.
We must firmly keep in mind that this country is its people. The people are the country. We must fulfill our fundamental purpose of serving the people wholeheartedly.
The Congress also elected a new Communist Party of China's Central Committee with 205 members and 171 alternate members, and a new Central Commission for Discipline Inspection consisting of 133 members.
Our achievements over the past century have been truly remarkable, and more than 100 years on from its founding, our party is still in its prime. We are fully confident and capable of creating new and even greater miracles on the new journey of the new era, miracles that will amaze the world.
A report read by Xi Jinping at the opening session of the Congress a week ago showed a determination to stay on the current path in the face of domestic and international challenges.
To a different development now. 2 people were killed and 12 others were injured following shelling from Ukrainian armed forces on the town of Shebekine in Belgorod region. According to Health Minister of Belgorod region, 4 of the injured are in critical condition. Belgorod regional governor said almost 15,000 people were disconnected from electricity as a result of the shelling. And for more international news, let's follow these news in briefs with Islam State. Well, it seems that we don't have the reports. And finally, in our news, the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand won't kick off until July 20th. But the 32 teams that will compete for the trophy were placed in their groups at the draw in Auckland on Saturday. In the opening round of the Women's World Cup in 2023, the reigning champion, United States, will play against the Netherlands, setting up an early rematch of the 2019 World Cup final. In a tournament that had 32 teams competing and was divided into 8 groups of 4 for the first time, the United States, a 4-time champion, was placed in Group E, along with Vietnam, the Netherlands, and the winner of the playoff.
We are among the best 32 teams in the world, and we knew we wouldn't have an easy group. Now that we know the kickoff times, stadiums and everything, we will start preparing for the World Cup in a different way.
Well, the news roundup is ready now. Let's follow.
Over than 30 missiles struck Ukraine on Saturday, hitting many critical infrastructures including energy facilities. Several regions in the country reported power outages. Since October 10th, Russian strikes on power infrastructures have devastated more than 40% of the entire system.
The main target of Russia is energy. Therefore, please consume electricity even more consciously than before. The stability of our national energy industry depends on every city and district in Ukraine.
Thousands of people took the streets of 6 German cities calling for more just distribution of government funds to deal with rising energy prices and living costs and a faster transition away from fossil fuels.
I wanted to be there to defend all those who suffer social injustice. Seniors are often overlooked in this energy issue, and wages are not up to par. In the city, you have to worry about whether people can still afford housing.
The United Nations Security Council approved sanctions on Friday against the gang leaders in the Caribbean nation of Haiti, including an asset freeze, a travel ban, and an arms embargo. The resolution was drafted by the United States and Mexico. The draft sponsors teamed up with council members, including China and Russia, to approve the sanctions.
Those in favor of the draft resolution contained in S/2022/765, raise your hands. The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution is unanimously adopted as Resolution 2653.
Former President Donald Trump was given a subpoena on Friday to submit documents and appear before the House of Representatives committee, looking into his supporters' attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The panel called him to provide documents by November 4th and appear for a deposition starting on November 14th.
Well, that's all we have for now, but let's have a reminder of our top stories. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, honored on Saturday in Algiers the winners of the 8th edition of the Prize of the President of the Republic for Professional Journalists. Giorgia Meloni is sworn in as Italy's first female far-right premier since World War II. You also followed in our news how we shed light on how or who will be the next occupant of the 10 Downing Street after Truss and whether there is a guarantee of UK's stable future. And finally, Malawi is struggling to cope with a cholera outbreak that has killed more than 100 people since March last year. That's all we have for today's program. For more news, don't forget to visit our social media platforms as well as our official website, as you can see below on the screen. Thank you for tuning in. That's it for now. Bye-bye.